Tenang telah membawa resah, resah telah membawa kau kemari. Tapi kamarmu bukan di sini dan kau merantau lagi. The calm has brought the storm. The storm has brought you here, but your room is not here, and you wonder once again. Welcome to Norse Nusantara, where I bring you voices in art and living heritage that define and disrupt ideas about the Nusantara, the world's largest archipelago. Really glad to have you on the episode as we explore the richness of the Nusantara through your writing and book. Please introduce yourself and your multiple award-winning book, The Food of Singapore Malays, Gastronomic Travels Through the Archipelago.
Hi, I'm Khir Johari. I'm the author of the book, The Food of Singapore Malays, Gastronomic Travels Through the Archipelago.
Wonderful. Hey, when I first heard about your book, I thought it would be about food. But when I immerse myself in it, my goodness, it's an entire universe about the Malay world. It's culture, history, philosophy, and people. No wonder it took you 10 years in the making. And I feel like the rich and deep context of this book cannot be ignored. And I think it would be helpful for a lot of our listeners to hear key ideas of the Malay world as we unpack from your book. And you also grew up in Gedung Kuning, Kampong Gelam, which is the palace grounds of Singapore's last Sultan, which we will discuss more later. But perhaps for the purpose of, Norse Nusantara, and I do recall reading this in your book as well. And perhaps from your perspective, what does the Nusantara refer to?
Well, we unpack the word Nusantara. It means Nusa means island, Tara, Nusantara, Antara, so the islands in between Nusantara. So that's what we are. We are part of this larger archipelago. It's the largest archipelago in the world.
Yep.
So that's what Nusantara is. But today, Nusantara, among some circles, people would like to think that Nusantara is synonymous with Indonesia.
Yes.
But Nusantara is much larger than Indonesia. Of course, it includes Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei. So it's the Malay world.
Right.
So it has its root in the Majapahit most important text, that is the Negara Kartagama, in which in that writing, it is mentioned that these are the territories known as Nusantara, which includes Temasek and also as far up as Pahang in that text.
Right.
So that's what it means by Nusantara.
And I'm just kind of breaking down your book a little bit. This may seem like common knowledge for many of us living here. However, for many of our listeners from afar who may be unfamiliar, please tell us, as you did very holistically in your book, who are the Malays? Who are the Malays?
Well, this is how I like to look at it.
Okay.
I look at Malays with this, let's call it small letter M.
Okay.
And then there's Malay with the big M, the capital M. We are talking about Malays as one of the sub-ethnic group within Nusantara. Yeah, that will be the small M.
Yep.
There are people in the northeastern coast of Sumatra. And they are also in the southern coast of Kalimantan. And in other parts
Of course, the archipelago.
The archipelago, the Rio and so on.
Yes.
So that will be the Malay, the small M.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
But then you look at Malay, the big Malay, that would be the umbrella term. I use Malay is more, and in my book, that's my approach. I use that big M.
Right.
Yeah, I use that Malay in my book. I'm looking at the larger umbrella, larger group that includes all these various subgroups.
Yep.
So, but we do have something that we have in common, and that is language.
Right.
That is how we dress up. our pastime,
Attitudes.
attitudes, and food. So I think we need to look at the Malay world not as an ethno-racial geography, but we look at the Malay world as this fluid space where there's so much diversity from all these various sub-ethnic groups, but with something that we shared.
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
in terms of language, food, attitude. Yeah.
Okay. And speaking about food, and your book, of course, is an embodiment of that. What are the key elements of Malay food?
Geography plays a big part in forming what we eat.
Yeah.
So we are so blessed given that this archipelago sits right by, along the equator. It is an equatorial.
Yes.
So we have this abundance of flora and fauna to explore, to put together.
Yes.
This whole symphony of flavors. So that's what Malay food is all about. Yeah.
And now breaking down, you're touching on the topic of ecology. Yes, and I'm seeing that it's nourished by the richness of its tropical oasis. And I keep seeing these terms recurring in your book as well, nature-inspired concepts such as negeri di bawah angin, which means lands beneath the winds, and tanah air, land and water. How do these concepts kind of inform the richness of the Malay cuisine?
So when we look at who we are as a people, because we are, at the end of the day, maritime people, hence the expression tanah and air. So if you're born in a place like, say, China, right? Especially you're in sort of right in the middle of this land mass. So that the idea of the connectedness with water can be fairly distant.
Yes.
But because we are all islanders, hence the understanding of our motherland is made out of two components, land and water. So I could be studying, say, in England, and I said, when I'm done, I'm going back to not my negeri, but my tanah air, my land and water. That's what makes my space.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And
So that's tanah air, and the Okay.
And how is Singapore part of the Malay world and the Nusantara, this land beneath the winds?
Well, why wind beneath the winds? Because we are looking at the monsoon.
Right.
Right. Let's take for example, look at the northeast monsoon. Where is the angin? The angin comes from the
north.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we are the bawah angin. Yeah. So there is a distinction between negara atas angin. We're looking, say, Western Europe. We're looking at the Persianate world, as opposed to we are down below
Di bawah
angin.
Yeah. Interesting, because earlier when I spoke to our counterparts from the museum, there's a museological concept called the global north and the global south. So,
but that's a fairly new one. So it's really but this is really inexistent, right? You're talking about people who sail. So what makes you sail is the wind. So you have this very intimate connection with the wind, and then you call who you are. You call a region based on that wind.
Right. The natural phenomena.
The natural phenomena. Yeah.
And as we zone in on Singapore, and the food of the Malays, let's start at Kampong Gelam, where you grew up. Kampong Gelam today is known as a tourist trail, but beyond its touristic veneer, it was once a royal precinct and a center of Malay culture here. Tell us, what is Kampong Gelam?
What's in the name Kampong Gelam?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's in the name?
Yeah.
Now let's take a look at Kampong Gelam, since you asked me that question about Kampong Gelam. So Kampong, it means a ward, a district. That's what it is. Indeed, the English word for compound has its roots and the Malay word kampong.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, kampong. The English word for compound.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and Gelam refers to a tree that you can find along the shores of that part of Singapore, also known as Seduyong. That's an older name given by the Orang Laut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you say Duyong?
Seduyong.
Seduyong.
Seduyong, yeah. So Seduyong, so all these glam trees, and you need glam trees for the bulk. And when you pound the bulk, you get this paste.
Okay.
And they use for caulking. That's the process where you have two pieces of plank, wooden plank, and you seal it. That's the sealant. So of course now you walk to a DIY shop, but back then, what do you do? So it's really a reminder of the place being a place having harbors.
Of course.
And ship repair, shipbuilding.
Again, harking back to the maritime character of the Nusantara.
Yes. And in particular, since we're talking about Kampong Gelam, so Kampong Gelam was a royal port town.
And now, of course, we see it very land-bound, but before that, what was the geography like?
So maybe we can start by looking at the 1601 map by Iridia that shows Tanjung Ru. There was a Tanjung Ru on that map, 1601, and it says there was Shah Bandaria. So the Shah Bandar is a Persian word meaning port master.
Okay.
Shah Bandaria is a port master settlement. So there was already a port there.
1601.
Yes. So look at Tanjung Ru. So Tanjung Ru is part of the larger Kallang Basin. So that was the harbour.
Nice.
So you look at the painting by Percy Carpenter, and all the ship, they're all not in the foreground, but in the background, not where there's a picture of the Lau Pasat. It's not near Singapore River. It's where the three important rivers, Gelang, Kallang, and Rocho converge. They pours water into that basin. So there's all the activities, all the boats are all there, captured in a painting by Percy Carpenter.
And this port of call at the Kampong Gelam, what was it for? I mean, clearly for trading, but did it serve any other purpose? I recall something along the Hajj pilgrimage as well.
It was for the purpose of trade within the Nusantara. So you could be bringing goods from Batavia or from Makassar. You would dock in the basin, in a port. It used to be 1600 was in Tanjung Ru. Yeah. And then maybe you offload something. Let's say you bring diamond.
Right.
You offload, put on a smaller boat, and you traverse along the shoreline in what is today ECP, East Coast Parkway, and then you make your way up the super corridor. And that is this. I'm referring to the Sungai Johor.
Okay.
It was a super corridor it has the largest concentration of Malay forts. And believe it or not, in the 1600 there was a diamond factory in Batu Sawah.
In the 1600s.
Yes.
Who were buying these diamonds?
It goes. I'm sure it's
Who were they exporting these diamonds to?
I'm sure it makes it. They make it their way to Europe, to another parts of the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we were diamond making. I mean, we were in proximity to a diamond trading and producing hub.
It is, yeah, because they have to dock here and then make its way up to Sungai Johor.
Wow.
But what's really interesting is we were to look at a map, because these days you fly into Singapore Changi Airport, we think that we are sort of a discrete entity, right? But if you were to look at a Google map, just zoom out, we are right smack in the middle of the Johor River estuary.
Okay.
So there's the largest story to be told.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the Kampong Gelam. So with time, of course, it became the royal seat of the Singapore, Sultanate.
Right.
And Kampong Gelam, we have the Istana Kampong Gelam. And when you have an Istana, you have a mosque next to it.
Yes.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is to look at the anatomy of all these port towns around Nusantara. So you have the anchor tenant, so to speak. That's Istana. Next to it will be the masjid, and beyond the masjid would be the commercial area.
Okay.
And we have what is today Arab Street.
Okay.
That's commerce. Right? And in front of the Istana, typically there will be an alun-alun or a padang. That's what we have. We have a padang.
So
now occupied by the
of course,
the building that used to be the Kota Raja Community Centre. And the playground now turned into a parking lot.
Wow. Talk about this is sort of like the blueprint, urban blueprint.
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And then behind the Istana, you have the orchard. And beyond the orchard, you have the cemetery, and that's what we have. We have the Jalan Kubo circular cemetery.
And this configuration would be sort of replicated where the
Yes.
seats of powers
Yep,
are.
there is this similar pattern, the arrangement of the home of the powers to be, and then the commerce, for folks together, the marketplace. Yeah.
And it's interesting here because you grew up not only in Kampong Gelam, but you grew up in Gedung Kuning, which is this large family villa, which is on the grounds of the Istana itself of Singapore's last Sultan. What is Gedung Kuning and what was it like growing up there?
Well, Gedung Kuning was part of the royal ground. At some point, there must have been a wall. And a wall was set up between the two separate building, the Istana and Gedung Kuning. It belonged to the royal family. Then it was sold to my great grandfather. For the purpose of he sees that as a kind of investment.
Of course. Because he's a trader, right?
Yeah,
he was a merchant.
He was a merchant.
Yeah.
At Haji Yusuf, and then he sold it. But then the house was put up back on the market, because after 4 months the person that leased the place died. And in old traditional Chinese belief, that's not good, that's not very auspicious.
Okay.
Yeah. So my great grandpa decided, you know what? This house is up for sale. Maybe it's
just meant to be. It's yours.
Yeah, it's telling me that I should buy it again. And this time around, he moved his family from Kandahar Street, which is right behind the back of Gedung Kuning, moved into Gedung Kuning. My grandma was 8 years old when she moved in from Kandahar Street to this yellow mansion.
Lovely. And how has Gedung Kuning shaped your book growing up?
Oh wow! Gedung Kuning. It's definitely, I see Gedung Kuning as a treasure house of recipes because of who Haji Yusuf was, in part. He was involved with the Midget Sultan rebuilding, and with all this connection, and you look at the constitution of Midget Sultan, it really reflects that pluralism within the Muslim community. So it cannot be just all Javanese or all Malays in the mosque, the board, to to sit on the board. So you have to be somebody from the Coromandel Coast or the Mulberry Coast, somebody from the Arab background. So to make sure that they are all represented within the board. So Haji Yusuf have all this connection. So that provide the home a kind of a window. Yeah, we of course you have family parties. People can bring their food, a potluck, or they exchange recipes. They talk about you look across the pond and say, wow, look at what they're eating. It's so good. So the women of Gedung Kuning really absorb all this great culinary ideas,
influences.
Yeah, I grew up eating pasta from very young. So, but pasta, you just walk maybe 50 meters away to Kampong Kaji. It's not quite part of the staple. Along Bustra Street, but I grew up with the food that has Ottoman influence, Arabic influence, and that's one. But my great grandfather wanted the best form of education for the daughters, so not just being able to read and write, go to school like everybody else, but there was a need to cultivate, to foster this home economics, home domestic science education.
Home domestic. So, you are a math teacher after all.
So when the Dutch, after Indonesia's independence, many of the Dutch moved back to of people orang Indo or sort of hybrid Dutch and Indonesian. They returned to the Netherlands. My great grandfather engaged someone very well known in Batavia to come to coach his daughters. So we had somebody, but she's of Minang stock. We all know her as Mak Guru. That's how we venerate her. Her name is Fatima, but we call her Mak Guru. She lived in Gedung Kuning, and she would conduct classes for the girls of Gedung Kuning. So they would know how to make your own soap, how to make your own soy sauce. Yeah. And we were very early on very exposed to Dutch cakes and cookies. Things like katetang, like, the cat's tongue. That's very Dutch.
Yeah.
So, we picked that up. So, Gedung Kuning is very much, is really a treasure trove of recipes.
Yeah.
And that shape and mold, what I eat, how I look at food. Yeah.
It's interesting how your great-grandfather, Haji Yusuf's, mercantile background and the community that he was part of was, in a way contributing to the cosmopolitan character of Kampong Gelam. And how has that kind of infiltrated into Malay food? Are there signature dishes that show off this, culinary cornerstones of the cosmopolitan Malay world?
There's something about this urban Malays, and of course, again, when we talk about urban Malays, you could be orang Banjar that deals with, say, diamond polishing. You could be orang Minangkabau. You could be orang. Of course, Jawa involved with Hutch trading, the Hutch business, and also the publishing and bookmaking.
Yes, I recall that.
There is something about this worldview, being in an urban setting with a certain level of affluence. Right? Urban settings and level of affluence, very cosmopolitan. You look around you look what people eat and how people go about doing their daily life. It makes you become part of this milieu, right? Very, very outward looking. My great-grandfather, when he started making songko and in a Hutch belt. He's been credited for introducing this belt. Imagine you have, instead of a Swiss Army knife, you have a belt that takes care of everything. There's a coin pouch, there's a key holder for your keys and everything.
It holds up the sarong. And
well, of course, that's the main thing, right? So when he started this business, and then later on he saw younger people also wanted to get into the trade. So what he did was he stepped back. He encouraged all these young people to do it. He stepped back, but he took a different role. He decided to be the agent for the raw material instead. So I grew up, playing under the staircase, and grew up in Gedung Kuning, playing the staircase. I saw these bales and bales of velvet, silk velvet from France.
Beautiful. Gosh. Wow. It's like like the whole world converged.
Yeah. So there's something there is something about Kampong Gelam, that the energy, that vortex, and the recognition, the people there, that a new place calls for a new recipe.
Ah, well said. Yes.
And the people experimented. Did you bring with you your prior knowledge? And you could be of Javanese background. You're familiar, let's say, with tofu. You're familiar with tauco. But you know what? You have Clyde Terrace Market, a stone throw away. That is the wholesale market. And every day is a constant flow of catch from the sea. People experimented. And tada, before you know it, you got mee siam, you got mee rebus, you got mee maiden, you have putri salad with the glutinous rice removed, replaced with bird's custard speckled with sweet corn, and tada, before you knew it, it's called talam jagung. So Kampong Gelam, as really people need to know, it's really an incubator. There are three main arteries for food.
Yes.
So one is Bustra Street. It was featured in writings and books about the epicenter of kueh making. Every household is supposed to be some kind of like an artisanal a workshop. Everybody have their own specialty.
Right.
You see that during Ramadan yearly.
Okay. And you mentioned three, right?
Three main arteries.
Okay.
So Bustra Street is one of them.
Yeah.
The next one would be Kandahar Street. So Kandahar Street is like the whole Indian subcontinent has its representative there along the entire street. I stepped out of Gedung Kuning, I could hear people speak Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, Punjabi, Marathi, all on one street. People selling all sorts of curry houses. I mean, you call it stalls, whatever, but I call them curry houses. From yogurt made in terracotta pots to fried quail to every flatbread you can think of.
Wow, amazing. And what's the third one?
The third one was Jalan Sultan. So Jalan Sultan is that's the home of the sop tulang. When
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it started because you want to toss out. All you want was the meat. Instead of tossing it out, somebody said we can do something out of this because hey, look, there's the bone marrow.
Bone soup. So we have kueh, Indian culinary variety, and then there's soup tulang, which is bone soup.
Yes, and then along the dotted all over this within this three, you get the Minang nasi padang.
Oh, of course, Minang. What an institution,
right?
Minang House.
So from Pariaman to Sabah Menanti to Rumah Minang, they all have their roots in Kampong Gelam.
Kampong Gelam, right? And I mean, how do you feel? What are your reflections witnessing the evolution of Kampong Gelam, the heart center of Singapore's Malay world, against the backdrop of modernizing Singapore?
Well, we see, despite what it's, to me, I see that concurrence. Right, it's happening because Kampong Gelam is not stagnant.
Yes.
So Kampong Gelam is also taking shape as all the surrounding taking shape.
It's evolving.
It's evolving.
Yeah.
So despite all the skyscraper that we see around it, but there's still that energy. There's something that that pulls people to Kampong Gelam.
Indeed, it has a very unique mix of tradition, but there's also, as you said, a lot of culinary experimentations that we see right now. So you can go and get your traditional fix, but then you can also, get new iterations of Malay food.
And international food or Western food.
Course. Yeah.
So all the younger generation is okay. So Kampong Gelam have seen all this, all this changes, urban, we'll call it a redevelopment that's taking place in its surrounding.
Yeah.
But it has retained, however, it's sort of a Muslim quarter, a Malay Muslim quarter. It has retained that character. So if you're going to eat, but I want to eat pho, Vietnamese pho. I want to have some ramen for today.
Yes, of course.
I want to have some French food. Because of Kampong Gelam being Kampong Gelam, you find halal iterations of this within Kampong Gelam. So yeah, I thought it's really interesting. It's still people flock to Kampong Gelam like bees to honey pot. It's always been. In the past, it was something else, and today you're more on F&B. People just want to chill there. There's something about that place.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. There's a certain magic about Kampong Gelam. Yeah, undeniably. And as we zoom out of Kampong Gelam and Singapore, and just looking a bit broader at the Nusantara, our unique environment, ecological character that defines Malay food. And looking above and beyond time, this is also something that your book mentions. What do early records like the Sulalatus Salatin could tell us about, food then, especially in the space of harvesting? What is Sulalata Salatin?
Sulalatus Salatin refers to the book on genealogy of kings.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a book on the genealogy of kings and kingship, but commonly known or commonly called as the Malay Annals.
Right.
That's what it is. It's Sejarah Melayu, but its original name is Sulalatus Salatin. It's really a record of stories of Malay kings and kingship and the history, the rise and fall, and all the various kings that played sort of big and important roles in the larger story of the Malay world. And that's what it is. What can we draw from Salah to Salati in terms of food? I like this example. So Sultan Sultan also records the story of the landing of Sang Nila Utama to this island called Temasek. So he arrived on this island. So while he explores the land, and that's when he encountered that singer.
Yes.
His falls, it was recorded, the falls where it happened that when they arrived, it was at low tide. And the crew were busy foraging, were picking up whatever they could pick from the shores for consumption. So I can imagine they'd be picking up, shellfish or sea grass.
So that's one of the early documentation.
Earliest documentation
of food.
Of food, yes.
Yeah. Malay food.
Yeah. And likewise, you look at pre-Islamic, people were consuming pork.
Indeed.
Yeah, everywhere. So wild boar and all that, they were consuming that. And that's why, we look at our cousins up north in the Philippines, they're still consuming that.
So in that respect, are there like pork dishes in Malay cuisine?
It all depends. It all depends on which Malay group we're looking at. If you're looking at the Big M, within the Big M umbrella, then it will have the Orang Batak. The Orang Batak are still consuming. The Orang Bali, Orang Batak, they still consume pork. Yeah. But the and one of somebody did a archaeological study of a place in Perak.
Tell us.
And you were looking at, because we're looking at what called gastroarchaeology.
Yes.
So looking at food, trying to understand food through the perspective of your digs. They found so many strata, and in every strata, there's some pork remains. So meaning that with time, pork has also, with different period, different era, pork consumption has always been there.
Yes, and its source clearly speaks of, the space that it is generative of it, right? The habitus of pork. And of course, you find that in several Southeast Asian cuisines as well. And talking about this relationship between ecology and food and people, tell us about some of the Malay communities who had an intimate relationship with the ecology of, with Singapore's unique maritime ecology.
We lost so much to urban redevelopment. So imagine if you live in Siglap, or you live in Tanah Merah Besar, or you
Coastal
live in
areas.
your coastal area, or Kampong Wak Hassan. Your front yard is the sea. And you have this intimate
seaside living.
Yes, seaside living. That was the original seaside living. You have this intimate connection with the sea.
Yep.
Not just that is your highway, but also your source of your food. Yeah. So you have this tacit understanding of when to forage, what to forage, and how to prepare it for consumption.
What are some of the key signature dishes inspired by the coastal regions?
I think mostly fish, seafood.
Seafood, asam pedas.
Yeah, asam pedas. Asam pedas could also be meat, but because of who we are, we have always been pescatarian as maritime people, and it's something that people need to know that it's pescatarian. And meat is only for special occasion. You don't consume your meat. You got chicken running around, but we don't slaughter chicken every day. We don't. Yeah, and things like meat and all that. It's a special occasion dish. Of course, today is so convenient. I can have my rendang, beef rendang every day. I just go to the hawker center.
But that was usually the reserve for, like, as you said, special occasions.
Absolutely, okay. Yes. Yeah. So fish, squid,
of course, shellfish. Yes. Yeah. And speaking about like unique foods, what are some of the unique concoctions from the Malay world that revolves around healing?
Food for consumption?
Yes, food for consumption. I'm very intrigued by the story of jamu It's yeah.
Yeah. So there is an adage in the Malay world that goes like, actually, it's my grandmother's. I would say there's an adage Malay world, but I think a lot of grandmothers understand this concept. My grandma used to say, "Why eat medicine when you can eat food that becomes medicine?"
Such a great thought. Yeah.
Right? I mean, here we are. We're thinking about
Yes.
when you get ill, let's go to the pharmacy. But also that preventative sort of way of looking at food. Yes, enjoy the food, but go for food that have all this efficacy, the potency on your well-being.
Well said. And some of those examples would be things like jamu and
Jamu is almost like tonic light.
Right.
Then you would consume it like once you do it, make your tonic once a week, or you could have those that you could consume every morning.
and what's it made of?
It all depends. Jamu is a whole range. Jamu is a genre on its own. So it is made from plant parts, from roots, from stem, from a leaf. And all these people that put this together, they understand the wonders of what each leaf or branch or root would do to your body, what it does. And they also understand for a certain ailment, then you would have this, it's like your own home safety first aid box.
Nice.
Yeah, every grandmother have their own first aid box at home.
I mean, we're more familiar with the jamu that we commonly see, which is the turmeric, the yellow concoction. But yeah, I never really thought about, it comes in a spectrum
And
actually.
it comes in a spectrum, yeah.
So as we wrap up our conversation of Food of Singapore Malays, tell us about the lifestyle of the Malay communities that have changed or evolved with urbanization. How is that reflected in the evolution of food that is rooted so much in tradition?
I mean, given that, we all have to, people are busy making ends meet.
Yes.
Yeah. And this, the lifestyle, we want it instant, in most times these days. So the whole understanding of, the whole appreciation of slow food, it's really declining. Yeah, to understand, to appreciate the making of food, to understand the source of food. So I think the enjoyment that you get if you were to grow your own herb in your backyard and working, from literally from farm to table, every morsel they consume means a lot more. Imagine the story you can tell to your kid coming back from school.
Yeah.
What you got from behind the kitchen to the whole process of making to now you're savoring it and having the conversation. She says, "Mommy, is this is delicious? What makes it delicious? What's delicious about it? What can you detect? Can you guess what ingredient goes into that?"
So it's more than just consumption. There's a whole life built around it, actually. Yeah.
So we are just rushing, rushing through the day. How many of us really want to take the time or could afford to take the time, to be fair to people who are, all going to be busy working, to make your bergedel from scratch?
That's bergedel, which is, of course, a potato patty.
Potato patty.
Yes.
So it's twice fried, spice, flavored, and then you fry. So you could walk into one of the supermarket and buy frozen bergedel.
Yes.
Made in the factories, yeah?
Yeah.
So that has changed. How we look at food, our connection with nature has changed.
Yeah.
So you go to your secondary forest or you wait for the low tide to get your own clams.
Yes, as you have shared with us, right? A lot of it is having an understanding of the rhythms of nature and working with that. Yeah.
Understanding when is the low tide, when is the high tide, understanding the season.
The cycling.
The cycling, yeah,
nature
season, yeah.
Of, yeah.
But today, the whole idea of edible education is of wanting to eat what's local, to look into sustainability, to eat what's seasonal. It's very sexy, very fashionable now. But those practices are all traditional practices that already existed, in the traditional Malay world.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's that. And I thought wood carving, among Malay artwork that's very much cherished, celebrated, and that has the widest sort of range in terms of what's still existing. That would be woodcraft.
Okay.
So woodcraft. So, and I thought it'd be nice to bring this.
Yes, tell us about this. I mean, here, knowing that you are a collector of Nusantara artifacts yourself. Yeah.
That's my focus. I started with Islamica, and I decided, hey, there's so much, in my own backyard. Now that I'm back in Singapore, I thought, I better start collecting stuff from the island, Southeast Asia, that has the largest sort of demographics when it comes to a Muslim population.
Yes.
So so I'm looking at Nusantara pieces, but not necessarily the Islamic. So when I look at this, I said, wow, look at this kungkur kelapa, coconut grater. I love the way it's done, with the ukiran tembok. That has what we call open work, and it's just, or the lattice effect. So it creates this airiness, this lightness. It's not just one block. But I also like how, look at this. This is actually an abstraction of something that's zoomorphic.
Yes. What is it? It's,
so it is an animal, but we don't know what it is.
An anteater?
Yeah,
or...
it is an animal. But, so this is an artist's sort of rendition, an abstracted something, but we know it is zoomorphic. But exactly what it is, and perhaps it's in line with Islam. You want something that reminds you, yes, it is from the animal kingdom, but you don't want it to have to really animal form. Yeah.
Yes.
But I love how you incorporate all the foliage, the use of color. So when you look at this, this is a coconut scraper. But what is really beautiful is something that is utilitarian can still be gorgeous.
Artistically beautiful. And earlier I spoke with friends from the museum talking about language in art. And right here, I mean, I could see the early abstraction of art abstraction here in the region, right? Without being conscious of it. Yeah.
Yes. And I like how, so when you look at what, there's no two pieces that's alike. So I reckon that the artist must have, as he goes along, so it all depends on his mood, what inspired him. And he said, okay, this is the foliage combination. This is the geometrical combination I want to go with, a repeat pattern that I want to go with this piece. So yes, you use this every day, and yet it has to be beautiful. Look at this coconut scraper.
Yes.
I think the coconut scraper, it's coconut, we see this all over the Malay archipelago, right? And of course you see in some parts of in the South India too, because they have lots of coconut over there. But really, coconut, there is a Malay world that's very coconut centric. Indeed, I would say coconut is the kernel of Malay gastronomy. Look at how Malay, how Malays are able to take just from one coconut, from coconut kernel, that you could do so many things more than anybody else could do it. From, grating it to get fresh coconut, to, and then, for squeezing it, you get a santan. Santan, you can get the clotted santan, clotted cream santan. Then you get coconut milk. And, you can toast the grated coconut and get your kerisik. You can flavor it, you get your serunding.
And don't forget the leaves for the
leaves is another story. So it's just kernel alone.
Wow.
So there's something about, it is really indeed, the kernel of Malay gastronomy is coconut. So I thought all the more, I think it's important to bring this, to say, look at this. And true enough, it's really a celebration to take the time. I could do something, just a block and just a scraper, that's it, I'm done. But it has to be decorated.
Yes.
It has, and then people believe there's spirit in all of this.
Whoa.
And this also is identified as male and female. Look at this. This is a female. This is a male. Because whenever they have protrusion at the bottom, it's a male. So the one that's flat, nothing, that's a female. So
tell us here, I'm quite intrigued. What do you mean like some of these objects have spirits in them? Whose spirit do they have? What kind of spirit do they have?
They're semangat. They're semangat. Semangat is this inner life force, right? All of us, we have semangat. Whether it's human, whether it's you think it's inanimate like this, it has semangat. So it's attached to you. You, the user, and the object, there's this bond with time. So when you scrape, you know exactly how to scrape these and get the best gratings and probably make the most delicious food because this guy works with you. A good example that I included in my book is a story of this auntie who had to move out of her Clementi flat. She used to grind her own rempah, her own spices. Well, she thought, I had a Molinex at home, but the Molinex, all the Molinex does, it was just the blade. It cuts. My batu giling, by slab of granite with the roller that I crush and pulverize, gave an entirely different taste to my gulai, to my curries.
Wow.
So when I moved out of my Clementi flat, we in a hurry, we took the big slab and we left the roller, the pin, the rolling pin. And for 3 nights, I had this dream that somebody came to me. Was it a dream or this appearance of somebody in an image in front of me asking, where is my child? Because that's mother and child. That slab of granite and the roller pin is the child. It was separated.
Wow.
So it has its own inner life force.
Inner life force, yes. So such are the very unique knowledge of Nusantara food making.
Yeah, and that's we're talking about stone, let alone something that comes from a living part. Is it dead? Wood is always alive, regardless.
And does it apply to, of course, weaving?
It applies to kain as well. So look at this. So this is a songket.
Yeah.
Now, batik makers are known to fast before they even start batik. Batik makers are almost like some kind of a shaman also. Yes, they are creative, they are artisan. But what they make depends on what is being inspired, what comes to them. Batik are like a piece of document. It's not just about aesthetic. Oh, it's so pretty. Look at the design, look at the color. No. It's supposed to be a message. When my daughter gets married, she's going to move to a different part of the island. I'm going to make her some batik, maybe centipede. Why centipede design? Because every leg of the centipede is going to swipe away any negative energy that is going to go to her when she wears it. When she moved to a distant part of the island, away from home, a new family, a new place, new neighborhood, right?
Right.
So that's why I thought it's very important to bring something that's a textile, a woven piece.
Yeah.
Right. People start weaving using natural element around in your surrounding.
Yeah.
Like you work with reeds, you work with leaves, you dry it, and then you weave it. These are the original bottega.
The ketupat, which is the original bottega.
So imagine. So how do you go about weaving thread? Out of cotton or silk. There are terms. There are terms that you get from a foreign origin. But when it came to things that has got to do with weaving or stitching, it's interesting to look at the whole list of Austronesian nomenclature.
Right. Tell us what are some.
From jarum to jahit to jalin, to songket. These are all Austronesian terms.
And interestingly, what you've just mentioned to me is a kind of a patterning, right? And would you say this patterning would then kind of help us picture kind of Nusantara iconography in a way?
It does, But it gives reference to an old and Asian tradition of weaving, working on looms.
And from your knowledge, might you know, are there like certain philosophical ideas or just ideas that is behind certain symbolic weaves?
Oh, I mean, weave. You can do something as a plain weave, just monoculture. I mean, it's monocolor. Sorry,
Yep.
so monocolor, and you can start working with colors. You get striped. What if you have your warp and your weft are different colors? Then you get checkered. Yeah, and that also reminds us of our material that made its way to Europe, for instance.
Yes.
I was telling people that earlier, look at the stripes, and there's a name for it. It's called gingang.
Okay.
Yeah, that's doing so. Kain gingang, kain with its stripe motif. So gingang with time became gingham.
My goodness. So that's kind of the backstory, the origin story.
But of course, gingham has a different semantics now. It refers to something that's checkered, right?
Yes. Nice.
So yeah, so I thought it'd be good for me to bring the songket, and the idea of look at the word songket, look at the etymology. It means to ongket, to lift. So it is what it is because it's supplementary wealth. In order to introduce, because you have your warp and your wealth, but you introduce a supplementary. So to do it, you have to ongket.
Nice.
Hence the cloth called kain songket. Yeah.
Oh, it's poetic. Yeah. And talking about art and science in the everyday, this has a beautiful geometrical configuration as well. Tell us more about this piece.
That is a Sireh box, and then we can talk. We can have the whole afternoon talking about Sireh culture in Southeast Asia, and its sacred origin. But this particular box, the Sireh Tepak Sireh, is typical of Sumatran. So this is actually from Palembang. It is a trapezoidal shaped.
Right.
So with a sort of bigger base and a smaller top. So when you open this, you see
Shall
the
I
compartment.
open it?
Yes, go ahead, open. Yeah, and then you see
Surprise! A treasure awaits.
Yeah, all the various compartment, the little containers that you use for filling up your kapur, your gambir, your pinang. There's your rika nut.
Oh my gosh! Look at this.
Slick lime. Yeah,
this is silver.
it is silver. It's silver.
Oh, beautiful.
And this is 19th century, late 19th century. But what's really interesting is the use of mother of pearl to decorate. And you look at today, mother of pearl doesn't quite have the same color. Look at the violet, the pink, the green, the blue. It's got to do with the quality of the waters in our surroundings, right?
Wow.
So this was a different time.
Yeah.
The color, the iridescence, it just stands out. And the amount of work that goes into this is really, really fine work inlaid over lacquer.
Lacquer, which is again
Very much Palembang. It's the Palembang.
Yeah.
Palembang is known for its lacquer production.
Yes.
So this is lacquer inlaid with cut pieces, floral and some scroll work and some geometric as well. From the mother of pearl.
Beautiful.
But when you look at this again carefully, and it reminds you of something else, reminds you of another location, not Sumatra, not what is today Indonesia, that has the same technique. And that is Thailand.
Of course.
Thailand has a lot of this. Also from a different period. But so I'm trying to make sense. How did this happen?
Yes. How did it travel? How did it influence each other?
So it could be a case of, there are all these itinerant artisan. So somebody from Thailand could make it his way or her way to Sumatra.
Yep.
The water is never a barrier. Water is always that bridge, cultural bridge, a bridge of love. You are from Bengkulu, your your father-in-law is in Kelantan, for instance.
Yeah.
So this could well have been done by someone from a sort of a Thai background.
Interesting. And tell us, what is the practice of Sireh about?
Sireh is one of those practices that I think is one of the most egalitarian of practices. You can be a king, you can be a commoner, you can be anybody, male, female, young, old. There's something about cereal consumption, the cereal practice. So it's not just you consume, but it's symbolic of so many things: hospitality, of a family bond. So when someone consumes this from the sacred point of view, it is as if you are propitiating your ancestors.
Okay.
It has got, so it was believed that the early...
So it's more than just consumption.
It is more than just consumption.
It's a gesture to your ancestors.
It's a gesture. Yes, someone comes to your place. The first thing you serve is, the series said, not your drinks and your kueh. Because if you don't serve me, it shows that I'm not welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and the Dutch, Dutch men used to consume this. It's known, this is what you need for wheeling and dealing.
Right here.
Within the Dutch and in a local, maybe, a local headsman or something.
Nice. So is there definitely like they say adat, which is practice, right? In caring for not only the rituals but also the objects, because if they carry a certain energy, and it's passed down through generations, it has to be handled with care.
Absolutely.
And not like
Absolutely.
disposable and so forth. Because, in the story of the Batu Giling, she was looking for her child. So you'll be haunted by it.
And same thing with batik, because batik, you commission batik, you've been wearing it. So when you decide one day, your sister say, can I borrow this note for a party? When she wears it, she gets sick. Every time she wears it, something was just amiss, wasn't really right, because it wasn't the right fit. It was not for her. That spirit wants to be with you, not with your sister.
Learning something new.
Yeah,
from
that's
Khir
this
Johari. connection. Yes.
Yeah. So I collect creases as a collector, because I'm not big on crease. I love creases. I love the artwork. I look at this handle, but we know the soul of the crease is in the blade. There's something about the crease. Right?
And I recall going to Bali to one of the largest crease museums by Patneka. And again, like the batik makers that you have described, the making of it is just not the making of it. Like the crease makers do have to go through a fast and, conduct mantras and so forth, because that spirit is then imbued into the objects. That serves
exactly
not just a utilitarian function. It's aesthetical, it's spiritual, and it's also protective. Yeah.
And that's the thing, you always forget about the spiritual component of an object. So when I have these creases, our friends come to the house and say, "Hey, Khir, that's alive." I say, how do you know?
It's giving me the vibes.
Yeah. And people say, "Oh, that's not kosong, it's not empty, there's something in there." I say, seriously? Yeah. But I collect all this stuff. I know it belongs to somebody at some point. And people are probably no longer around. But I think the intent is to care for them. It's never mine. I just see myself as a mere custodian. So in the hope that right now I want to celebrate, I want to enjoy, I want to share it with friends and family. At some point you've enjoyed it. Let somebody else enjoy it. Send to the ACM or something.
Yes, please do. Wow. Thank you, Khir, so much. Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to this episode of Noor's Nusantara. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and subscribe to this podcast to hear more from leading thinkers and creators on picturing the Nusantara.